All right, hello there, everyone. It's Mazske Finance coming to you again with what's going to be an outstanding interview. And today is Thursday, January the 6th, if I got it right, because I'm living the life where every day is a Saturday. But my special guest today, and you're going to love this one, it's a gentleman I've gotten to know over the years. His name is Jerry Padilla. He is actually a mortgage. I'll let him tell you what he is, but I'll call him like a mortgage lender. He'll help you get a mortgage to buy either your primary residence or perhaps an investment property. So Jerry, go ahead and say hello to everyone.
Hi everyone. Like Mark said, I'm Jerry Padilla here from Prime Lending, and I'd like to just chat with you guys and just kind of go over a little bit of what I could offer everybody.
So, all right, sounds good, Jerry. Well, if you want to just help everyone get to know you just a little bit, just give a kind of a brief introduction as to who you are, where you've come from to get to where you are today.
Okay. Well, I've been in the mortgage business roughly about almost 15 years now. And in the beginning part of my career as a loan officer, I was doing your typical loan officer gig where you work with the realtors and then try to find the first-time home buyers and try to get them into a loan. And then when the good old market crashed in 2008, I actually got out of the business for a couple of years. And then when I came back into the business, I changed my business model. So what I did during that time of away from being in the mortgage business, I actually became an investor with my wife, where we renovated her property and then we flipped the property and then bought another property to buy and hold and renovated. And then we also ended up house hacking at the same time. So we had multiple projects going on at once. And this was during the time where I wasn't in the mortgage business and kind of learned all the ins and outs of investing and how to do it right and how to make many mistakes and tried to figure out how to fumble through those mistakes. So when I got back into the business, I decided that I wanted to work with investors mainly. It was my main focus. And helping them to grow their portfolios and gain themselves in a position so that they could be able to grow as an investor. And it was a niche that I felt that would work well with me because I like doing it myself, and I like working with people directly instead of having to be third party. So I started building my foundation on working with investors. But not only do I work with investors, I help my investors with their primary mortgages, or even if they're looking to purchase a second home, and then any referrals and families that they provide that are either looking for first-time home buyers or second homes or even investment properties. So I'm not just subject to investment properties, but I can handle all your other type of financing that a typical loan officer does. But my niche has always been the investment loan for your consumer, just because it was something that I had enjoyed when I was in the business for a little bit and found that it was something that was pretty fruitful for people.
All right, that sounds good, Jerry. And it's really cool you're an investor yourself, because that gives you a different perspective on things. Like, say if you have a brand new investor who doesn't know what they're doing, not only can you help them get a mortgage, but you've been in their shoes before. So you know how to,
Correct.
And if they don't ask the right questions, you know how to give them the right answer that they need to hear.
Yeah, and helping them to gauge and things to think about and making sure that they understand like what they're getting themselves involved into, and understanding what's the importance of handling the financing the right way and what you're going to do with the different types of programs out there. So it's always fun to talk to a new investor, just because they don't, like you said, they don't always have the right questions to answer. But when you hear what they have to say, it kind of helps me to navigate on what I need to educate them with.
Right, that sounds good. And one thing, I don't think I've ever asked you this question when we've chatted before, but I've known you now for a couple of years. You've helped me to get, I think it's a total of 9 mortgages. And those 9 mortgages are in 4 different states. The last one was on my primary residence here in Florida. You helped me to refinance a house in Alabama. Then you helped me to buy properties in Indiana. So maybe it's just
Yeah,
3 states you've helped me with. But how
no,
many?
and we recently helped with your buyer on your old investment property out in Virginia.
Right, that's right. Yep. Robbie bought my triplex, and I'll tell Robbie to watch this interview because I interviewed Robbie a week or two ago. You can always find that video if you look back. So
Nice.
so it is 4 different states then. So how many states can you actually help someone get a mortgage in?
So my company is eligible to lend in all 50 states. So the company has the ability to lend in all 50 states. My branch itself is limited to what is it, 45 states that I can't personally originate just because we don't have licensing in those states for our particular branch. But in any of those cases, I could always just reach out to a loan officer in that state and give them the referral and help them to navigate the process if necessary, if it came out to be. But in my experiences being with Prime Lending, I think I've only had maybe 2 investors ask about financing in the states that we don't lend in that I wasn't able to provide financing. So it's very far between that I see that those states are states that people want to go into for investment purposes. But all your major states, we are licensing.
Right. Okay. That sounds good. Well, let me ask you this then. Say when I first contacted you, I had already owned, I don't know, I think 5 rental units. But let's say there's someone out there watching today. They have not bought their first property at all, not a primary residence, not a rental property, but they have employment and they call you up. Can you kind of walk us through what you would tell them, like kind of how, like what they need to provide to you to get started to buy their first property?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and we actually have a client in that same situation right now where he's a brand new investor, couple years out of college. So he's actually brand new to the workforce as well. So in his particular case, he doesn't really have any debt and he has cash to deploy and is wanting to put that cash to work for him. So we're able to get him into a single family residence. He in this case has to qualify for the mortgage on his own just because he doesn't have any experience as being a landlord. But once he has developed that experience, then he would be able to get credit for that income, which the lenders want to see at least 12 months of landlord experience in order for you to get benefit of the rental income that you have on properties. And so, I mean, he does a situation where he doesn't have much of expenses. So we're able to get him into the loan and put him in a position to get his first investment property so that he's able to move forward and get into the process of buying a property. And the documentation is all the same if you're doing an investment property versus doing a primary residence. They all want to look at your income. So they're going to look at a 2-year history of your income, 30 days worth of your pay stubs, and then 2 months worth of your assets to ensure that you have enough money to put down. And then if you do own any properties, then they would just want to look at validate those properties that you do own and what those expenses are. But as far as documentation, it's all pretty simplistic now. I mean, things could get very granular if somebody's self-employed and they're beginning to be an investor. And there's a little more documentation that need to be in that. But me and my team are able to handle any type of self-employment or multiple self-employment clients that have a handful of tax returns and understand how to read them. Because that's also important too, is making sure that you understand how to navigate the income for clients so that they could get qualified.
Right. Okay. That all sounds pretty good. And I know, like say from helping me over the past couple of years and helping like other folks in my group, a lot of the houses that we've got mortgages from you for are for houses that are cheaper than a lot of property in the US. Like some houses might be $50,000, $60,000. So what is the current minimum price on a house that you can provide a mortgage for?
And it's still within that range, 50 to 60,000 purchase price. Ideally, I would like to keep it to where the loan amount's 50,000, but we can handle the smaller loan amounts. It's just that in today's market, those smaller loan amounts are going to be at a higher rate just because there's no margin of profit in the smaller amounts when you're taking everything in consideration. So, but it all comes down to the numbers. I mean, as you know, that if the numbers work, then it makes sense to buy it. But if the numbers don't work, then you just walk away from the deal. So, and that's one thing that I have learned to adapt. You're going to have situations where you go into a property and you go into contract and you get the inspection and you start moving along with the things, and then you come to find out that the inspection created some conflict and the seller wasn't willing to negotiate or fix, and you back out of the contract. So we understand that that's going to happen because these are always business decisions. So it's not something that we're concerned that if we go into contract and we start getting everything going and then it ends up getting canceled. It's just part of the investor life, just because you have those situations that do happen, especially when you have a seller that's not willing to work with the buyer.
Right. Okay. That sounds good. Something I forgot to ask you at the very beginning, if you want to say it now, is if someone wants to reach out to you, what is the best way for them to contact you?
Probably the easiest way to contact me is through email. So it's Jerry, which is JERRY .Padilla, PADILLA at primelending.com. Easiest way to reach me. And then that way I could respond back to you and then give you additional contact information.
All right, that sounds good. And I'll stick, for anyone watching and wants to contact Jerry, I'll put his email address in the description below. So, all right, Jerry. Hey, one question is, I know your assistant is Melissa. Is she close by right now where she can say hi to everyone, or does she want to stay off camera?
I don't know. I actually haven't asked her if she was a on camera, off camera type person. So I'd have to venture to say, let her be off for today, but I'll touch base with her next time and see if that's something that she'd be interested in. Because I don't want to put her on the spot right now, knowing that this is being recorded. So, but yeah, I know Melissa is my assistant. She's amazing. And she helps to navigate during the process to making sure that all the documentation is there and in line for the underwriters. Because as the current market handles the environment, the documentation for that is very heavily driven on validating all the documents with everything. So there is a lot of documentation that goes along with purchasing property nowadays, but that's just our current market. No matter what lender you go to, you're going to have to get that. And she's really good with making sure that we get what's necessary, and we try to get as much upfront as possible. So stuff once they do their review on the file.
So, all right, that sounds good then. And let me think. Well, is there any? Let me know then, because I think we're getting a little. You're probably at like 15 minutes or so on this interview. So, is there anything we haven't talked about yet that you wanna talk about real quick?
Well, I mean, a couple things that a lot of people don't realize is that VA loans, especially for people that are in the military, it's actually a great way to start your investment portfolio, because you can buy a multifamily, get into it with no money down, live in one unit, and then your obligation is only 1 year to stay in the property. And once you've met that obligation, you can make it into a full investment property. So you're putting yourself in a position to be able to cash flow even further. But it's a great way of starting your investment portfolio, especially if you've served in the military, and being able to get into your first property without having to put anything down on it. So a lot of people don't realize that VA has that capability, and they don't realize the benefit that you could get into 0% down payment with no mortgage insurance either. So it's a great program for the veterans, and if they're looking into getting into investment and they haven't purchased their first primary, definitely a great way to start your investment portfolio.
All right, that sounds good then. And one last question too. I'm just thinking on it. I try to talk on this channel a lot about folks who have never invested before, how it's not really that complicated to start investing in rental property. From your perspective, working with mortgages, if we just take the average American who's been working a job for a couple of years, who has minimal debt, and let's say they want to get their first rental property and they contact you, is it usually successful that they can do it, or do you have to work with people and kind of coach them on how to improve their credit score, or I mean, just what are your thoughts on that?
So it depends on the clientele. So somebody that has the mindset that they want to put themselves in a position to invest, those guys or girls already have the credit needed to qualify. So in those cases, just making sure that they understand the amount of assets needed in order to be able to do the investment world. Just because not only do you have your down payment and closing costs that you have to provide documentation for, you have to show money for reserves. So having retirement accounts as well helps with the reserves aspect of it so that you can continue to grow the portfolio. But it is something that having the assets is a key factor in starting your investment portfolio. But a lot of times I don't see credit scores being much of an issue with new investors, just because with the power of the internet and the power of all the sites that are out there, they're well educated themselves into what they need to know. So when they're finding that aspect of the lender portion of it, they kind of already have a basis points of where they need to be at. So when they're coming to me, I think they've already established that and already done their due diligence, so that it's not me teaching them where everything is, it's just me making sure that they understand and navigate through that process.
Okay, right. That sounds good. Good. And you mentioned one thing there about having reserves. If someone does have a 401k or a Roth IRA, or they're in the military with a TSP, they can all count towards reserves, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's a nice advantage of having retirement accounts, because the reserves is just showing the ability to use those funds, but not having to actually utilize those funds. So if you have a TSP and you're in the military and you have $100,000 in that TSP, that's going to take you a long way for the reserves aspect of it, for the investment portfolio. So, I mean, that could get you all the way up to 10 properties with $100,000 in a retirement account. So it's crucial that people have different sources of assets and to show for reserves. The only thing that is not really a source that could be utilized for reserves at this point is crypto. But it is allowed for down payments, because you obviously can convert that crypto into real cash and utilize that, but it's not something that is being looked at upon for the reserve aspect of it. But a little bit of a different world, and I'm sure that the investors will eventually evolve to it as it gets further and further into its lifeline of that industry.
All right, that sounds good, Jerry. You've given us a lot of great information in this first video of hopefully more to come. But with all my interviews, what I like to do is to give you the last word. So it's your opportunity. If there's anything you forgot to mention or anything you just want to bring up, the floor is yours.
Oh, well, I thank you for the opportunity to be able to chat with you and to discuss a little bit about financing options. And if anybody does have any questions, they could definitely reach out to me via email, and I'd be more than happy to assist anybody. But more importantly, I hope you have yourself a great day, and that we continue to work with each other. So.
All right, sounds good, Jerry. I'm sure we'll talk again soon. And once I stop recording, just hang tight and I'll chit chat with you just a bit. All
Okay.
right. But anyway, audience, I do hope you got a lot out of this. Jerry's a great guy. He has helped me get 9 different mortgages. He's helped my son get mortgages and different buddies to get mortgages. So if you're a first-time investor, or if you already have 1, 2, or 3 rental properties or whatever, if you want to get a mortgage and you haven't tried Jerry out yet, shoot him an email and he'll be glad to help you out. So thanks again, Jerry. And this will be Mazske Finance signing out.